Unfortunately, I've gotten this video out a little late, but recently we passed 50 years since the release of the album Close to the Edge. I want to celebrate this album because it's one that I truly believe is worthy of celebration, and that is because this album is simply incredible. Although it's been 50 years since the album released, I feel like it's a piece of living history and it'll still be listened to in 500 years, because it's such a rare piece of musical mastery. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Many of you clicking on this video are likely a bit older and are already fans of this music, having listened to it for decades. But I also know that some of you will be brand new to this music. Some of you will be younger, like I am, and it is you, my fellow kids, that I kind of want to sell on this album, this band, this genre, and this music. First of all, if you want to listen to Close to the Edge, it should take up all your attention. You should start with the title track, shut off all distractions, put your phone away. In fact, I'd recommend going to listen to it before watching the rest of this video. Otherwise, keep watching and hopefully by the end, I've sold you on it. You should pay attention to the music. The 20-minute length of the title track may be daunting, but in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. The average person spends 2 hours a day on social media. Think of how many hour-long Netflix shows or movies that you watch. 20 minutes contemplating music really is nothing. I actually think this song is the best introduction to the progressive rock genre. Sure, it's not as accessible as, say, Fragile, the album with the JoJo music, but it epitomizes the genre. And if it works on you, you're hooked. To be honest, your first reaction may very well be confusion. You may think it's an awful cacophony of noise, particularly to those of you who aren't massive music nerds going in. But the worm slowly makes its way into you. Give it a couple listens, maybe when you're on the bus. Soon enough you'll be unable to get the melodies out of your head. You'll want to study every little detail. So why is this album so good? I'll break it down, starting with the first track, the title track, Close to the Edge. It opens with the peaceful sounds of nature, some Zen meditation stuff, with some growing twinkly synth, almost like wind chimes. Then the explosion. The complete incomprehensible cacophony of noise. It has these vague new age spiritual themes present, and the opening certainly supports this. It evokes the violent state of life coming into being. Much like life itself, it appears entirely chaotic on the surface, but when examined closely, there is a very particular order. Epic and mysterious. Close to the Edge is actually a very structured song, following quite a complex, strict format of verse, chorus, bridge and all that. Unlike most of these prog epics, it isn't like multiple songs stitched together into different movements of one big song, although it does consist of 4 different movements. No, it has a repeated chorus and motifs and even something you could call a hook. It's less of a journey and almost like a giant pop song. But not really. It's still a journey like many of its prog contemporaries. It has a beginning, middle and end with decidedly different moods in the movements, just slightly more repetitive. The intro section is followed by 2 different sections with a similar structure. Intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, each concluding with the addictive I get up, I get down.
I get up, I get down.
The second section is similar with a slightly different chorus and this thing I've heard called a fugato at the end. At least that's how I think you pronounce it. It's basically a funny way of saying something that sounds like a fugue, like Baroque music. For those of you who don't know, think Bach. Yes, this piece was inspired by Baroque music. It employs those tiny little flavors of it effortlessly, seamlessly into the rock music. This section is splashed with choral electric sitar, like the Indian instrument, but it's electric. It gives strong hints of Eastern spirituality, which I'll get to. And it's also obviously reminiscent of the Beatles, who were a huge Yes influence. Because Yes performs music that has guitars and drums, so of course they're influenced by the Beatles, like literally every other rock band ever. You can hear just how distinctive the sound of Yes really is. It's hard to take their sound without just sounding like them, because there is nothing quite like it. Their style is so easy to recognize. At the same time though, it's so hard to recreate them. Easy to recognize, hard to pin down. Because if you remove just one member, it becomes entirely different. They just don't sound the same without, say, John Anderson's vocals. The albums without him just do not match up. It's hard to get the sound without Steve Howe's guitar. It's hard to get the sound without Chris Squire's, rest in peace, powerful picked bass with that intensity and attack. Never let a bassist tell you that you can't use a pick. No band member is replaceable, except for Bill Bruford, I guess. He left after Close to the Edge and Alan White did a bang-up job on Relayer. But that's fine because Bruford went on to do even better in King Crimson. His impeccable precision and odd rhythms are certainly noticeable on this album, but he's better suited to Crimson's more jazzy style. Although the band is extremely technically competent, there was no need to show it off in this song. No part of the song exists just for a solo. That's not to say they don't show off incredible proficiency, but every solo feels earned. They're never just noodling off on their instruments. Each part of this song serves some grander purpose. Every moment is essential. Steve Howe stands out for his ability to switch seamlessly between styles and never strictly staying in one. His playing borrows, obviously, from his contemporaries, from the Beatles, much like every other rock musician ever, from classic rock and roll and rockabilly, notably from jazz and the likes of Les Paul and Wes Montgomery, and classical as well, as with many of his progressive rock accomplices, but also from more eclectic, exotic sources like country and southern rock, and even bossa nova, all kinds of sources which effectively lend this relentlessly cheery feeling to all of his playing, treating his guitar at times like a banjo, at times like a harp, or often like a guitar. He's just incredible. That Close to the Edge chorus melody is used in a couple of different contexts to match the mood that Yes wants you to feel at the given moment. It gives you something familiar, but then leads you to something novel through happiness, sadness, fear, and awe. I realize that this, in and of itself, is already alien to the typical music listener. A song that can have multiple moods in one song, like a film, with sad parts and happy parts, with a story and a narrative. One of the most triumphant parts is the third section, or fourth if you count the intro. It's the B section, the section unlike the others, the dripping cave, which is more of an environmental soundscape, before the haunting voices join in, singing of the lady in white lace. This is John Anderson, Steve Howe and Chris Squire singing, I believe, although I could be wrong. The voices slowly build in pitch and intensity to the climax of the rapturous church organ. E to D sharp, then F to E, with a progression of bass notes that really comes together to create this whole overwhelming moment. And then this false ending. It returns briefly to the verse that we heard before, and then the organ comes in again. And this time you know it's the true end. It conveys both horror and majesty. This is it. This is everything. Then it transitions to the synth. ecstasy to jubilation. It's like the bridge between the old world and the new. It epitomizes Yes's whole sound, and prog rock really, the forefront in history with the rich synth textures and the mini moog, while also drawing on hundreds of years of music with the transcendent church organ. This is the kind of music that opens your third eye. Decades of Satanism, MK Ultra, corn syrup and chemtrails are all instantly wiped away in this spiritual moment. My pineal gland has never felt less calcified. This is all thanks to keyboardist Rick Wakeman, who they brought on for the JoJo album. You know he's the real deal when he carries around this giant stack of electric keyboards. He's capable of bringing such an incredible array of unexpected textures, from the transcendent to the comical. I have to call out Jack Black here for committing an unforgivable crime. This is my video, going on record as officially exposing him. In School of Rock, he hands this Asian kid Fragile, saying it'll blow the classical music out of his butt. The truth is, Rick Wakeman loved classical and was incredibly strongly influenced by it. In fact, on that very same album, the song that Wakeman chose to contribute was a cover of Brahms. So, how do you like them apples, Jack Hack? Wakeman brought a similar virtuosity to his band that Keith Emerson brought to ELP. Unlike Keith, however, he did not have as much room to dominate the sonic space, having more bandmates to contend with and everything. The transcendent keyboard section all comes crashing down for the final return. The music is just as abrasive and energetic as the opening, but it's a reprisal of the first section, the A section. Like the end of life, going through the same motions, singing the same chorus, but with more immediacy, for you know the end is coming. A final reprisal. You get up one last time, you get down one last time. Seasons pass you by. Oh, and a sick keyboard solo to boot. The song ends where it began, returning to nature. You may wonder, what is the intention of the lyrics? Well, there is none. Don't try to listen to the lyrics the first time around. They may sound profound from a distance, but when examined closer, you realize it doesn't even form coherent sentences.
An assassin points to know and eating every single one. A huge volcanic altars like the music of the sun. And take away the plane in which we move and choose the course you're on.
This is entirely by design. John Anderson stated that he basically wrote them to just sound good. You don't expect the twang of a guitar to convey any semantic meaning. You just expect it to produce a note at a frequency which sounds good. It's the same with this. The words just sound good. The vocals behave like another instrument. That's not to say there isn't any sense whatsoever behind the lyrics though. That they do not say anything at all, I'd describe it as imagistic. Lines like,
And according to the man who showed his outstretched arm to space, he turned around and pointed, revealing all the human race.
certainly portray a strong image. They give you a strong sense of spirituality about finding the divine in things. It's almost pantheistic. Yes did seem quite caught up in the new age mumbo jumbo, not quite crystals and alchemy, more meditation. It certainly evokes the ups and downs of life, with lines like, I get up, I get down. Seasons will pass you by is a really strong image for me. It makes me contemplate the passage of time, but it also puts me at peace with it.
Seasons will pass you by. I get up.
The line close to the edge really summarizes the music itself. It's at the edge of modern and ancient, teetering between pop music and art music, between the East and the West. It's a kind of synthesis of music, operating in its own liminal space. The Down by the River draws from Eastern influence, or rather, Western dabbling with Eastern influence, much like Yes's work. It's inspired by the novel Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. It's not a direct retelling, but much of the imagery is reminiscent, being near the river for spiritual guidance, for example. It's more so that the song borrows a lot of the common language found within the book. Siddhartha was a character who lived around the time of Buddha. He met Buddha, but decided to pursue his own path because he didn't feel his teachings applied to him. He learned that true knowledge comes only from experience, and that time is an illusion. The past continues to exist as time continues. According to John Anderson, the final verse was inspired by a dream he had of dying and passing on to the next world, and it was so wonderful that he never feared death again. So, Close to the Edge is incredible. Hopefully I've convinced you to give it a listen if you haven't already. The album consists of 2 more songs. And You and I is not a different song from And You. It's And You and I in Siberian Khatru. And You and I opens with the most incredible words. Okay, these emotional lyrics are accompanied by some acoustic harmonics from Steve Howe and some very light ambience in the background, which invokes a kind of icy winter. There's some more picking until the bass comes in, and then the strumming in 3/4. It becomes magical and truly ethereal when Rick Wakeman's Mini Moog starts playing. It feels like the start of spring. John Anderson sings something about the chords of life. Maybe it's about the chords that connect our soul chakras to the universe or something, I don't know. And You and I does sound like a love song to some extent. There are some lines that are from first person and seem to refer to another figure. Knowing yes, it'd probably be more likely to refer to a spirit guide than just a mere love song. Maybe it's still love, just a pure platonic love for the perfect higher reality ideal of this person. But again, I don't think you'd classify this as a love song you sing for your muse. The transitions between sections are impeccable. There are about 4 sections, with the last being really short. The first transition is this really cool organ interlude. It feels like you're traveling through space. It keeps building to this crescendo and has all these false endings where you think it's going to resolve, and then it just keeps building, rising to increase the pressure, and then you realize this is a whole section, isn't it? The chorus-laden guitar just starts soloing over it because why the hell not? Coming quickly to terms with all expression made. Eclipse is a good name for this part because it feels like a celestial phenomenon. Then the opening's guitar picking returns. Then country or folk for the next section. But instead of pickup trucks and chicken fried, it's sad creatures, insane teachers, and mutant enemies. Not even joking. Was he playing Stalker or something? There's a part in here that gives me an off feeling. It's at about 7 minutes and 30 seconds, and it sounds just like my mum calling me from another room, subtly from the left headphone.
Troubles asking to be shown the same. In the end, we'll agree, we'll accept, we'll immortalize.
Funnily enough, I actually took my headset off at the first part the first few times I listened, legitimately thinking it was my mother, so it kind of has an eerie quality for me. This section finishes off with a monumental high-flying reprisal of the synth section. It has this long, drawn-out outro that feels like multiple planets are exploding, and then the song ends. Psych, there's a 4th section. It's just a short reprisal of the And You and I section. And You and I feels like more close to the edge. Maybe more intimate and heartfelt, but it feels very similar, which is strange considering how different they are structurally, stylistically, in terms of the instruments used and the sounds they were going for, but it feels like a thematic continuation. The album is only 3 songs, which kinda makes sense if the first song is 18 minutes and the second is 12. It's not unusual to come out of this album thinking Siberian Khatru is the worst song, but you'd be wrong.
They're all equally
good. Siberian Khatru is yet another excellent track, but it feels a little bit jarring just coming off some spiritual experience to just another rock and roll song. And yes, we're at the point where a 9-minute song consisting entirely of odd time signatures with detailed, layered melodies and fucking harpsichord is just another rock song. It feels a bit out of place, simply down to being a tonal departure. It's slightly darker, which is a testament to how upbeat Yes is when this is considered dark stuff that'll turn you into the Joker. It's got riffs, it's got guitar solos, it's got an electric sitar solo, the aforementioned harpsichord solo. It doesn't really build up to any large focal point that kind of splits the song in two like the other two tracks on this album do. Chris Squire's bass steals the show here. Okay, it steals the show literally everywhere, but here especially. The lyrics are about human unity and how we should all just get along or something. Apparently Khatru is the word from Yemeni Arabic. You may wonder what about this is Siberian. At this point you must realize that the time for questioning this stuff was half an hour ago. It's funny that John Anderson kept using the words Khatru in his singing, and he didn't even know what the word meant. That's a testament to how his songwriting works. He could be cursing out his entire audience in Swahili and it wouldn't matter as long as it sounds good. The lyrics themselves don't communicate a direct meaning. I think people occasionally tend to look at Siberian Khatru as the weakest due to people's tendency to order things, to just want to say some things are better or worse, because there's no way all three things could just be equally good. But this album really doesn't have downtime. All three songs are essential, they're all good. If I could change anything, perhaps I'd switch the order of the song. It's hard to listen to Siberian Khatru just coming off some huge 18-minute piece. They should have ended with that. The song was packaged in this green to black gradient album with the Close to the Edge and Yes logo at the top, designed by Roger Dean, who, let's admit, was totally ripped off by James Cameron for Avatar. They had a lawsuit about it and Roger lost, but seeing the sequel it's far more obvious. If you didn't know, Roger Dean is an incredible artist. So Close to the Edge was incredible. It released on 13th of September 1972. It was great for the band's commercial success, hitting number 3 on the Billboard Albums chart in the US. It's certified platinum and all that, and it's all deserved. Where Court of the Crimson King is typically regarded as the official beginning of the progressive rock genre, Close to the Edge is often regarded as the zenith. Apparently it's ranked at 445 on Rolling Stone's top 500 albums of all time, but to many, it's number 1. It is just an incredibly enrapturing piece of music. It is some people's lifelong obsession. Yes would go on to make other long, epic pieces in different styles. Some would incorporate elements of jazz, but Close to the Edge epitomizes the time, the place, the style, and the music all so well. Is it perhaps the perfect album? That's for you to tell. I found this paper which goes with infinitely more depth into the actual music part of the music than I did. It was useful for my research for this video, so I'd like to thank the writer of it, obviously. Thank you very much for watching, please subscribe, and goodbye.